Hello again, gamers. Welcome back to the Board Game Captain. I'm the Board Game Captain, and today I'm going to be counting down my top 10 favorite tile-laying or card-laying games. Now, tile-laying and card-laying, they're a type of game where you either use tiles or cards to lay them on the table, and the positioning is incredibly important. What they are next to, what will affect points or even the ability just to play them on the table. If you are not used to modern games, for a classic example, you can think of the game of dominoes, which is a classic tile-laying game. So, without any further ado, let's get to my top 10 favorite card or tile-laying games. Now, my number 10 is a small box, light, fast game that I would love to have a nicer board to because it just comes with like a paper fold-out board. But this is Religion and Regality. Now, this is a kind of abstract strategy tile-laying game where one player plays the Regality and the other player plays the Religion, and they're fighting over control of a nation. So I guess it's meant to be like a medieval European nation where they're both different forces fighting for control, and you're laying cards out on a 3x3 grid, and the cards, when you lay them, they'll face in your direction, but they will affect other cards already on the board, causing them to turn around to face your direction. So you can, in this way, you can affect cards that your opponent has already played. Each player has the same cards. It's thoroughly symmetrical, including there is one card in each player's repertoire. The Regality has, the Regality has the castle, and the Religion has the cathedral, I believe it is, where they don't affect any cards around them, but they themselves may never be turned. And in this way, you can change your strategy up, deciding which cards you want to play first, where you want to play on the board first. And it's a very light, fast game, but with unbelievable amounts of variety for such a light, fast game. I really, really enjoy this one. And that is Regality and Religion. Now, moving on, my number 9 is a bit of a much larger game than that one, and also one that takes a lot longer to play, and that is Neurohacks. Now, this one is a game where you're playing out a battle, but most of the game is preparing for that battle, which is really kind of weird. You do a lot of tiling. You put out these tiles, these little, I believe they're hexagon-shaped tiles, and as you place them on the board, which there's some pictures of how that looks here, they have symbols on them that show how when the battle happens, they're going to affect other pieces near them, where they attack, if it's a close range attack or a long range attack, what their initiative is. So you can calculate it all out. And then at some point, someone is going to play a tile that says battle, and they're all going to fight. And the idea is there's one tile that you each start with that is your base, and if you can destroy your opponent's base, you win the game. It's a lot of prep for a handful of battles when it just all goes down and a lot of destruction happens, and if you planned well, you should destroy a lot more of your opponent's pieces than they destroyed of yours, and then you build them back up and do it again. It's a really cool game. I really enjoy it. It can play at more than 2 players, but I really like it specifically at 2. And that is Neurohacks as my number 9. Now, for my number 8, I have a game that won a bunch of awards when it came out, and that was all the way back in the early 2000s, around, I think, 2000 or 2001 was when it first came out. And that is the game of Locusts. Now, whenever I describe this game to people when I'm looking to play it on a game night, I always tell them it's like the video game Tetris turned into a board game, because it really feels like that a lot. So you start in one corner, and everybody else starts in other corners. You can have up to 4 players, and if you're playing 4 people, which is my favorite way to play this, 1 person in each of the 4 corners. And you play pieces. Your first piece must start in that corner, and then you can play pieces that touch the corners of pieces you already have on the board. And the pieces you play look like Tetris pieces. Now, they're allowed to touch the sides of your opponent's pieces, but can only touch the corners of your own. So if you can work your pieces right into a corner from where your opponent's pieces are coming from, you can use the dead space that they were unable to use on their side of the board. And the idea is you want to keep going and get as many of your pieces out as possible, because the person who got the most pieces out will win. And that is the game of Locusts. Now, for my number 7 game, I have a card-laying game, and this is one of the few, I'm just looking, it might actually be the only one, where this card-laying game, you're actually allowed to lay the cards on top of the other cards. Usually most of these tile and card-laying games, you lay them next to each other, and they're not allowed to overlap. But they have to overlap in this one, and that is Kodama. So in Kodama, you are building, or rather growing, a tree. And you lay the cards over it, they look like branches, and they have to match up with the branches that are coming either out of the trunk card or out of branch cards that you previously placed on your tree. And you're trying to set up, the tree has these symbols on the tree branch cards, which can be things like caterpillars or clouds or stars or fireflies, and you want to have lines of them going through the cards, because the more of them that go through, you get to add them up, and those are points you get for playing the cards on them. In addition, you're playing towards objective cards that you have in your hand, that at the end of each season, because you grow through 3 seasons, through spring, summer, and fall, at the end of each season, you get to play one objective card and score that card based on how well you played towards that objective. This is a really great game. This has gone over really well in my game group. And this is one that still hits the table, even though we've had it for a number of years now. We really enjoy Kodama. So, my number 6 favorite tile or card-laying game is one that also hits the table quite a bit in my game group. And this is Lanterns. Now, Lanterns really feels like it draws its heritage directly from dominoes. Except, whereas dominoes have a number on either side, this uses colors, and the colors are on 4 sides, and you have to link them together and try to earn points and you earn cards by linking like colors together. You'll get a card of that color, and then you can trade in sets of those cards to earn point tiles, is the way it works. But this is a really fun game, and if you were a fan of the classic game of dominoes but want to look for something a little more modern, this is a great replacement. Fantastic replacement to dominoes. Now, my next game on my list is very similar to Lanterns, but with an added storytelling element where you're working out a murder mystery, and that is Mystery Motive for Murder. So in this, you're playing out a murder mystery, and you are all detectives, and you're laying the tiles to show the motives that they have to have killed the murder victim. The better the motives, the more points you earn. It's really cool how it works. I love aligning the motives. I love reading the motives, because after you set up a tile, you say, Percy was caught stealing by the murder victim, or Eugenia was Percy's lover who was caught stealing by the murder victim, or something like that. And it's just incredibly fun. I love telling the stories. I love the tile laying elements of this game. And it is definitely a really cool tile laying game. So, now next on my list is my number 4. And that is a game that is actually fairly new to me. This is, there's a couple of fairly new to me games on this list, and this is one of them. I only got this at Gen Con 2017, so I've actually had it for just under a year, but it's been hitting my table quite a bit in that time, and everyone has loved it, and that is Barron Park. Now, this is another one with Tetris-shaped tile pieces similar to the pieces in Locusts, but in this case, you're trying to fully cover your boards, and the pieces are bear habitats and food stalls and bathrooms and things like that, and you're using them to fully cover up and build a bear zoo or Barron Park. And whoever fills it up the fastest and makes the most points, because the different pieces are worth different amounts of points, will be the winner of the game. And it's that easy, and it's really fun for people of all ages. I've played this with grandparents, and I've played this with children, and everybody has loved this game. It is truly amazingly puzzly and fun, and the theme is just adorable. And that is Barron Park. So next on my list, my number 3 favorite tile or card laying, in this case it's card laying, is a bit of a more advanced game than a few that I was just talking about, and this is ExLibris. Now, at its core, ExLibris is actually a worker placement game, but its second most important mechanic is a card laying mechanic, because you place the workers to be able to collect cards which show pictures of shelves with books on them. And then those cards you must place in your library, and you have to place the books in the correct alphabetical order to be able to score them. And that part of the game is big enough and awesome enough for this to be on my top 10 card or tile laying games. So I really, really enjoy that. I enjoy special abilities and actions you can take that can allow you to reorganize them, to try to better alphabetize them. And yeah, ExLibris made alphabetizing things fun for me, which is, I thought, was an impossible task. But there you have it. ExLibris is a great game. Again, worker placement, worker placement, and tile laying. Really, really tons of fun. Now, my number 2 favorite tile or card laying game of all time is Among the Stars. Now, you do a draft in this, and then the drafted cards are pieces of a space station, which you are going to build and lay them down, and they have to be placed in a correct way, because when you're building your space station, each of the pieces has to have power, so you can't place them too far away from your power stations, which are parts of your station as well. And then you use the power from the stations to power different parts of your ship, whether they be defensive parts or embassies for other alien races to come visit your space station, or just a food court. And it's really cool. I love laying out the parts of the space station, and actually, when the game is done, looking down and saying, ooh, look, I built a space station. Isn't that awesome? And this game is tons of fun. I really enjoy this one, and that is Among the Stars. Now, my number one tile or card laying game is a game that I didn't even really think of as a tile laying game until I just had a conversation with Lynn a little while ago, and she was like, oh yeah, that's totally a tile laying game. And I said, what? And she said, yeah, and she explained to me how, and I'm about to tell you her argument because it thoroughly convinced me. But that is Takenoko. Now, when she first said that's a tile laying, I said, no, it's more of a modular board. And she goes, well, yeah, it's a modular board, but you can take that action to draw tiles and place a tile out as part of the board, and then there's those goals which require you to have certain patterns of certain colored tiles out there on the board. And that part of it is totally tile laying. So now Takenoko has a lot of other stuff going on in it as well. There's set collecting, and there's moving pieces around the board to help you collect sets or to do different things. It's also pattern recognition and pattern forming. It's just an amazing game with a lot going on, but the tile laying element definitely is a big part of it, because you have to keep expanding that board and keep making more pieces, and you do want to get them out there in the patterns that match a card you have in your hand as a gold card. And that is both tile laying and pattern forming. So there you have it. That is my number one favorite tile or card laying game, Takenoko. So comment down below and let me know, what are your favorite tile or card laying games? And you can also tell me what you think of my choices, and if you think I maybe stretched it a little too much on a couple of them that are have tile laying but have other things in them. You can feel free to comment down below. And if you enjoyed this list and you'd like to see me do more like it, be sure to give this video a like, share it on all forms of social media, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Kaptain. That's Captain spelled with a K on YouTube. And until next time, game on!